here we are having our virtual cup of tea. And today I've got the beautiful Georgia with me. She is, this is her description, speaker and writer, lover of words, and rebel with many causes. I love that. That's fabulous. And she is over in southeast Spain. So we are in global again today with our virtual cuppa. So I'm going to, morning, Georgia. It's so lovely to see you, darling. I'm going to hand over to you so that you can tell us all who you are and what you do and where you are.
Oh, fabulous. Well, Jules, first of all, huge and heaps of love and sending you some sunshine because I know you've had quite a stormy couple of days over in the UK. Is your house still standing?
Oh, yes. I'm right in the middle of the country in Milton Keynes. I'm nowhere near the sea.
Good.
I'm always, it's boring really because I never really get any of the excitement of these things.
Okay. Well, so I'm on the southeast coast of Spain and I've been here 15, 16 years now. And it was always my dream to live by the sea, having spent most of my life in the city. So sometimes it's a little bit, difficult to adapt to the small-mindedness of small towns. Ooh. Oh. But there you go. I have an airport near me.
Oh, that's good. So you can get out whenever you want to.
Back into the city. But nowadays my feelings are much more that I like to spend 3-4 days in a city and then get back to the seaside. Yeah. So it was a great choice and a great idea to come down here and live here. And I do love my life.
Georgia, where are you from originally?
I was born in Budapest in Hungary and spent my first few years yabbering in that language. and then I came and lived in London. So I went to school in London, indeed, and learned to speak like the Queen.
Well, that's probably why your English is so beautiful, because you obviously spent a lot of time here. And how many years were you here before you went to Spain?
Oh, so I came just at the turn of this century. And so, yeah. So yes, last century. It was.
I know. I moved to Milton Keynes in 1999, and when I say it, it sounds like it was so long ago, doesn't it?
It was the last century.
So tell us about what you do now for your business. What is it that you do?
Okay, so I'm a speaker and a writer, and I kind of love doing both, and I sort of mix the two together. I absolutely love the writing process, but I'm open to sort of, new ideas of putting across your words. But I love speaking. I love being on a stage, and that's partly because I think I was born on a stage.
I think you were.
I think so. And I've always been, I get terrified and nervous and scared and all those things, just like everybody does before any kind of show. But I have been in show business pretty much all my life. On the stage, side of the stage, underneath the stage, at the back of the stage even.
Georgia, I think we all want to know a bit more about that. So I hope you don't mind me asking.
Oh, happily. So,
tell us a bit, because you know how musical I am. I confess to our group, our groupies, that we have had a cup of tea before, our virtual cuppa. But I wanted to do this obviously for the group, and I have a mad passion for music, as you know. I play alto sax, I play clarinet, I tinkle on the piano, much to my son's distress, because I don't play quite as beautifully as he does. So tell us about your background, because I love it and it fascinates me.
Oh, thank you, Jules. So I was a saxophone player professionally for 20 years. Back in the last century. And it was a tough time, difficult for a woman to be a musician, an instrumentalist, because you were always, oh, do you sing? That was always the thing that you had to do. Or else, when I went for auditions, it was, a girl saxophone player. And it was a sort of disappointment, Oh. And or you were given stupid little clothes to wear that size, Yeah. Anyways, I did the business for 20-25 years or something like that, And I made money. Listen, I made money, so I'm not going to knock it. But it was a tough business for a woman because you were often considered not aggressive enough. And then when you were aggressive, they didn't want you. So it was a tricky thing. I went into recording. I started doing some recording work. I ran my own recording studio for a couple of years, but it was very tough. Very tough to get the work.
And and did you meet famous people in that world, Georgia?
Yeah, I had a few. When I went out in a horn section, as it was called, 2-3 of us went, got together and put ourselves out as a section. Yeah, we worked. We did some step-ins. We stepped in from other horn sections that weren't available, and I nearly got into Top of the Pops, but they wanted us to wear these. I had this trumpet player and trombone player that I worked with, and when the producer saw us, his eyes just went, "Oh my God, you're too fat, you're too old, and I don't know what you are." I didn't get the job. And then the following week, when I watched this show, and I saw these 3 fat, old, hairy men in the horn section, I thought, "My God, I've got to grow a beard or something." Wrong.
So have you been on the telly on anything that you did, Georgia?
God knows. Maybe they did. Maybe they put a beard on me or something. I don't know. I did mostly live shows, especially back then. It was all about live shows, and
fabulous.
I really enjoyed that. So I did some touring and worked with some big names. So but it's a tough business,
Yeah, and I think the thing is, we probably all think it's quite glamorous, don't we? Because it just sounds that way, and the reality is always such that it's really not as great as everybody thinks,
Yeah,
So
that's right. One of the last tours that I did, don't even ask me where we went because we mostly travelled at night. It was me and 9 men in a van.
Road trip.
People, that sounds great, but it was so lonely. It was just
and was it smelly too? I'm just trying to
think you can think about, guys, was in that van.
I'm just trying to imagine.
we were in Germany, Holland. It was a 7-day or 9-day tour, and when I came back, I was just wrecked. I thought, that's it, I'm never doing this again.
Was that your turning point? Where was the point where you said you actually really don't want to do it anymore?
Well, the interesting thing was that I went away. I think it was that winter, actually. I went away. I was away for 6 weeks, and I didn't take my instrument with me, which was a very key thing, I think.
Yeah.
And so after a couple of weeks, my fingers were going like, what am I doing? I've got to do something with my fingers. I'm sure you can imagine that.
Yeah, totally.
And, the mouth was going. And so I looked for a piano. I thought, okay, I'll play on the piano a little. I'm like you, I tinkle.
Yeah.
I used it as a composing thing more and working chords out, stuff like that.
Lovely.
I couldn't find a piano anywhere, and when I did find one, it was out of tune, and so I got very frustrated. So I just picked up a pencil and started to write.
Wow.
And I started writing prose, poetry stuff, and then when I came back to London, I went to the Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London, which used to be my second home.
Yeah. It's
changed now, it's all different. But it used to be like my second living room. And so I went there, and there was this guy called Murray McLachlan or Larry McLachlan. I can't remember his name. But he was doing this 1-hour performance poetry show. And it was, I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was just amazed by it. So he was on stage. I went in and I've got to see this. And he was just stunning. I was just totally, I've got to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Yeah. So I started writing big pieces, and I realized that there was a really big performance poetry scene going on in London. So I went and jumped on every possible stage I could, and started ranting and reciting and performing my lyrics, my words. Yeah. And I teamed up with a bass player, and he said, bring on your sax, I'll do some bass behind your words. And when you're not talking, play a little melody or something. So we did that, but it never took off. It never took off, which was a great thing. Yeah.
So
then,
was that the first time that you kind of fell in love with words, would you say,
yes,
Georgia?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was, I never thought about writing before that, no.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so it's a lovely story, yeah. And I think then, because the work trying to blend music with words just didn't really take off. And I worked, I had some great horn players that I brought into the try to involve with working with, a fantastic saxophone player. I would do the words and he played the sax, and it was brilliant stuff, but we just couldn't get the work.
Yeah.
With his contacts with my just didn't take off. So I thought, okay, I'll try another road. And there was a lot of, the Americans particularly were doing slams, competitions, where all the poets got up and did a 3-minute piece that was voted for at the end by a random number of people in the audience. I thought, I'll do this, Yeah. But, and so I got into a poetry slam team, and we went across to the United States to work over there, all along the East Coast, Boston, Connecticut, all the towns, English named towns, Lancaster, Sheffield, all those. But they didn't like the English style of poetry or performance. They just didn't get it. It was very different.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, and the Americans, they were into the personal story. It was all I and I and I.
Yeah.
And
we're not so much like that in this culture, are we? We don't talk about I so easily, do we?
That's right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of the British guys, especially one of the woman in the team, the other woman, she was doing all this self-depreciating humor, which was hilarious. They didn't get it.
No.
Yeah. So
what happened next? What did you do next?
Well, I thought, okay, I'll leave the stage for a bit and I'll do some writing. So I did more writing, and I got into playwriting because I couldn't leave the stage.
It's amazing. I love this. Like, everything's just evolved, hasn't it, as you've gone along? It's a fabulous story. So
I got into playwriting, and I worked with a really fantastic, eccentric playwright called Bernard Copps, he's still alive actually, must be 90 something now. And he's done a lot of plays, and he used to have this gathering at his house where writers, prospective writers, script writers, playwrights would gather around with about 4 or 5 actresses, and we would spend the whole evening discussing a particular story, and then we would go into our corners and write a very basic, immediate script, and the actors would come along and just act them out, what we wrote, you see. So it was really hands-on stuff and immediate access to the creative brain, get going. So it really inspired me, and I wrote from that group, that writing group that I was in, playwriting group. I wrote 2 plays that went on to do. I put on the Fringe Theatre, because I thought, I'm not just reading on paper. I'm going to put it on the stage. What the hell? I didn't know anything about it, but I'm going for it, And I got a fabulous team together of mostly women, but some also guys that had just come out of design schools. I had a fantastic Brazilian guy do all the design for me. I had this amazing Russian violinist who played music throughout the play, and I broke even. I broke even, which was
absolutely, yeah.
But it was very exhausting, very tough.
Yeah, go on, sorry, carry on.
No, but that got me into doing music for theatre.
Right.
So I joined some big musical, especially Christmas time in the UK. They do pantomimes, they do big Christmas shows, and they need orchestras.
Yeah. In fact, Georgia, I would say that if I could do something, if you sort of go back in time, what would you do? I would always have wanted to be a musician, just because it was such a passion for me. And I always said to Sam, who's 12, my son, I always said to him, look, my big dream was to play in the pit orchestra at the theatre. It was just a dream, I wanted to do that. I played in wind bands and stuff like that, but that would have just been that real magical thing, I think. So was that the kind of stuff you were doing?
Yes, it was. But it was, a lot of, because at that time in London, there was loads of big theatres, but they were quite, they were community theatres. So, it is a lovely idea to play in the pit, but very often what happened was they needed somebody to run at the back of the stage and do a sound effect.
Oh, okay.
So I worked at the Hackney Empire, which was pretty big at that time, doing big kid shows at Christmas. And they said to me, we need somebody to run backstage and shake this piece of metal as though it's a piece of thunder and then come back and play. And I thought, well, I'll do that, But it was like a race. Sit down, so there was always other things that you were involved in,
Yeah.
And
kept you fit then, Georgia. Kept you fit.
Sure, on the ball. And but yeah, it was all great experience. And but I think I preferred the music to the theatre.
Yeah.
Theatre was also tough business. Well, all the arts, and they're never funded properly. They're never respected. People say to you, "Oh, you're an actress." Oh,
yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah, exactly. That's the face.
Yeah. But it's a shame. It's such a shame because there's so much talent involved in that sector, isn't there? I mean, I'm humbled by it. I think it's wonderful. I think when you play, when you're a musician, you completely understand the skill involved when you hear a good musician, don't you? And
true.
It's adorable. I always wanted to be that amazing musician, and I was always jack of all and master of none. That was me on the music front. So.
There's a lot of sacrifices involved, especially for women, to get to the music business and make a living out of it.
Yeah.
You can play in your local whatever community choir as well, but local community band, but actually make a living out of it.
Yeah.
It's another, you have to give up so much, and you have to look like so much. I mean, there's been this big scandal in Hollywood to show you how much what women have to do to be seen, heard, and believed, which is one of my mottos.
Yeah, absolutely. That's big news at the moment, isn't it? And it continues to be. So
and it's rife in so many areas where women want to show themselves, but particularly in performance industry or music or theatre or whatever. There's so much that women are expected to do. To be seen and to get credit for it, unfortunately.
Very sad. So then you've gone all this amazing journey and this fantastic story, which I just adore. And so bring us up to date. When did the Georgia we know today start? When did all of that business of yours start?
Well, moving out to Spain was one of the areas. There was a key point for hanging up my saxophone next to the pistols on the wall, and there they still lie. And because I knew that out here it wouldn't be. It's a very different scene.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, but what am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. So I started writing. I had to do something. So I thought, I'll go back to writing. And I started to write short stories, and I got involved with different writing groups because there is a British community out here. So for the first few years while I was getting Spanish language under my tongue, or on my tongue, I should say, then I joined lots of these British writing groups. And I also joined a Toastmaster club here.
Great.
And that got me back on the stage, and so I entered all their contests and was the hostess for many of the contests, and got me writing speeches. And I thought, this is interesting. It's a bit like monologues,
Yeah.
doing a monologue. I thought, I like this.
Yeah.
So, but Toastmasters is a hobby.
Yes.
And that's what I had to come to terms with. It's not a way of life.
Yeah.
But it made me realise that, all the skills that you learn in Toastmasters, particularly about evaluations, evaluating other people's work is a fantastic skill to have because it requires you to listen.
Yes, that's a sales thing, Georgia, the listening bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
2 ears, one mouth.
One mouth, yeah. And active listening. So actually, we're not thinking about our next question, and we're not thinking about what we're having for tea tonight. We are listening to what the person actually says, and actually even more than just their words, their body language and lots of other clues that go on with listening, especially if you're with someone. So, but yeah. So in terms of if I came to you, let's say if I met you, Georgia, and I needed you, what could you offer me as if I was a prospective client?
Well, I offer courses in writing and speaking and writing, and they can be done separately. So, for example, if you've got a speech that's coming up or a pitch, or you've got your TED Talk coming up, then with pleasure I would guide you through some of the things that I have experienced and I have learned how to work on a big stage, how to work on audience, how you can use your body language and your facial expressions and your gestures to spice up your speech, how you can find ways to engage and connect with a big audience, especially one that you can't see because the lights are on you.
Yes, and
isn't for the trade.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's almost like doing these Facebook lives. You know, they freak me out, Georgia, because I can't see anyone, and I'm thinking I'm just talking to the screen and nobody's here listening.
Yeah. So in theatre they call it talking to the fourth wall.
And okay.
It's a strange thing because what you're doing is you're looking straight out at that fourth wall, and but it's that's all gone now. Thank heavens.
Yeah.
And it is about trying to focus. When you're on a big stage and you can't see because you've got lights in your face, it is about thinking about, okay, there's one person there, that you're going to focus on, and then there's another person. It's like the 5-second rule. You do 5 seconds there.
Yeah.
5 seconds there.
Yeah.
You can't see anybody, but you just imagine it's George Clooney or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that one.
Yeah. But so as you said, it's very much about, it is a sales thing. It's but it's about, so encouraging and training a person to present themselves well with style, with charisma, pizzazz. Their own style, not mine, theirs.
Yes. Yeah, we are unique, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
And making them feel confident that they have their own style.
Yeah.
Because particularly women think, I don't really have anything special, look at me and all. But everybody does. And, and there are lots of tips and tricks about how to perform like a star.
Yeah. Your work sounds fascinating, actually, and I think very helpful to people. So it's really good that we've got to know that that's what you do, I think. Yes. I would also like to know how we get hold of you, because if we actually wanted to have a further cup of tea with you, because other people might want to do that now they've seen the fabulous Georgia, what's the best way to find out more about you, Georgia?
Well, I have a website, which is the 3 W's, and my name is Georgia Varjas, Varjas.
Okay.
Varjas. I used to spell it Varjazz when I was in the business.
I love that, jazz. Fabulous.
Yes. But anyways, Varjas, JAS. So .com, georgiavarjas.com.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook tribe page, which is my business logo is Step Up, Stand Out, because that's what I believe we should do. Get heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll also put these on the actual post when I post the video about Cuppa. I'll make sure that everyone knows how to get in touch with you. So, and I guess the last thing I do usually with my Cuppa is I just say, have you got anything that you'd like to ask me? One question. What would it be if you want to ask me a question?
Well, oh yes, I do. I the Dragon's Den thing.
What do you want to know?
I suppose you've heard this 1,000 times. Okay, no, that's too obvious. I'm going to see you this week in live.
I can't believe it. How exciting. Everyone is going to now know.
I'll ask you that privately.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question really is, for me about your sales thing. Why is it that, how did you come to love it so much? Was it because you were successful, or because you found a key to it, or it's just that you love spreading the good word?
So, Georgia, that's 3 questions, but I'll let you off.
I told you I'm good at this.
I know. I think just to give you probably the best answer is that I've always loved people, and I genuinely believe that sales is about people. I've always said this, as you know, and I have been in so many different sales jobs, so many different sectors, corporate, SME, my own business, and actually throughout all of that, I've still loved people, and I think that's what it's about. And I think any success I've had, because I've been lucky and had this fabulous success, is because I love people. And so I've done this whole live it, love it, sell it, which I always talk about. I'm having a big fight in my head at the moment with the things I see on LinkedIn around sales and the way that we tell people we should sell. And I'm fighting it because it's not complicated. You know this, you've said it yourself. It's not complicated. Why are we making it so complex? And it's usually because we're making it, it's coming from egotistical places. And people who have a big ego because they are in sales, and not everyone can do it. And I'm rebelling about that now, because that's not true.
I mean, I've always had the opinion that everything you do in life is about selling anyway.
Absolutely. My life skills is sales skills, you know.
Absolutely.
It's so true.
But I think what makes you so special and so different is you can see that you love what you do, but you're a very generous person. Oh. And you are extremely generous in so many ways. The way you give out information, the way you give out feedback, the way that you pay attention. Your paying attention skills are like...
Oh, thank you, George.
Absolutely.
That's so lovely. That's so lovely.
That's very true. And I'm honoured and privileged to be on your show.
Oh, my show. I know. That's so funny. This virtual cuppa is turning into like this chat show idea.
Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant to do that.
It's funny, isn't it? I'm absolutely honoured to have you too. And it's been a real pleasure speaking to you, Georgia, because I think you are so magical. I think you have such a fabulous story. You've done some amazing things that I am very envious of. But also you've been real about them and how hard they were, you know, and I think we have to hear those real stories, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what makes you who you are today, and why I think everyone should have a virtual cuppa with you at some point to find out more about you. So let's start a trend of virtual cuppas. That's what I say.
Absolutely, darling. But I would call it a cafe, because I'm not into the tea.
Oh, yes, of course. And
cafe with Georgia.
Well, can I just say that I've had an Assam tea today, so I feel very posh.
Well, I'm on coconut water, so there you go.
Oh, bless you.
Each to their own.
Oh, Georgia, listen, I can't wait to see you Friday. I know that's something personal for us. We're meeting in Brighton. We're going to the TED Talk. We're also going to meet Helen Packham, if any of you know her, and maybe some other people who we don't know yet, and we're going to obviously get to know. So I'm very excited about that. I'm only going because you've bullied me into going, but I don't use the word bullied.
No, I sold it to you. I sold it to you. I sold the idea. You bought it.
You so did. You sold it beautifully, actually, much better than I could have done. So well done to you.
That's a really interesting word. You bullied me into.
I was pulling your leg, really, because I didn't feel bullied at all. I think what you, if I'm really honest, I think what you did do is that you made me realise I could go, because I often will do this. I can't really go, and I make excuses to not do things. You know, that's the thing I have to get over sometimes. That's me being quite real on my live cup of tea. But you kind of inspired me a bit to say, do you know what, sod it, I am actually going to this, and I'm going to meet these amazing women. So I can't wait now. Now I've committed and I bought my ticket.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that, you know, I envisioned that stage, and that's the stage we all want to get on.
Yeah.
So you've got to see what it's like. You've got to see what the competition is, how big it is, what the room is like. And this is a bit, the Brighton stage is a big one too.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to get the feel of what it would be like.
Definitely. Listen, I'll see you Friday. I can't wait. And
Yes,
thank you so much for today. Thank you for our virtual cuppa. I've absolutely loved it. And I will see you Friday.
Yeah, real kisses on Friday.
Yeah, totally.
Bye, darling. Take
Lots
care.
of love, darling. Bye-bye. Bye.
Ciao.